Are you tired of the same old conversations? Do you often find yourself struggling to know what to say? Are you over discussing the news, sports ball, or the weather? It's time to put boring discussions behind you by leaving a copy of The Nephilim Look Like Clowns on your coffee table, your toilet, your local library, mother's car, boss's office desk, or that person you really likes bed instead.
What the hell is this?
Oh, that? Why, it's just a book about how the modern costume of a clown is a caricature of ancient giants and modern demons.
Stay away from my children.
This is a conversation you can't wait to have.
My family used to think I was crazy, but thanks to The Nephilim Look Like Clowns, they know I'm crazy.
The Nephilim looks like clowns. It's no laughing matter. Hello everyone, how are you all doing? Can you hear me? Let me know in the chat if you can hear me loud and clear. I had a bit of an embarrassing moment there. I've just been talking for like 5 minutes straight to absolutely nothing because I thought I went live. And my wife was just there saying, Paul? And I was like, excuse me one moment, nobody. And I just paused and it was like, yeah? And it's like, you're not live. Great. So here I am, I'm here now, I'm live, I'm with you guys. Episode 71 of a Truther Therapy Sessions. So we made it to 71 episodes. My last one, I did have a guest with me, John LeBon, which is available on all podcast streaming platforms, including YouTube. And yeah, we had a good conversation about all things conspiracy. And it's been a few weeks since I've done one of these sessions, and I don't actually have a guest today. It's me. We're back to basics. It's just gonna be me and you talking away. And it looks like in the chat everyone's telling me they can hear me. It's all good, and I'm here. Excellent. So let's not waste any time. It's kind of annoying because that was a really good intro. I was really happy with the flow I was getting into, talking about art, and it was all for nothing, and I can't remember a damn thing I said anymore. So it was it's one of those things you just have to deal with. I'll give an introduction of what I want to do today, guys. So, you know, my wife said to me the other day, it's like, you always talk about being an artist, and she said, but you haven't even like drawn anything since 2019. I was like, damn, she's right. Like, I'm a fraud. Here I am telling everybody I'm an artist, and it's like, when was the last time you picked up a pencil, Paul? And you know, when you're right, you're right, and I have to give credit where credit's due. So after she told me that, I kind of wandered upstairs in a daze and kind of picked this up off the windowsill and stared at it for a few minutes. You know, and I was staring at the date I'd stamped on this drawing I did of my wife, and it does say 2019 there at the bottom, as you can see. I was staring at it thinking, what happened to you, man? You used to draw, you know. And for those who are listening in podcast-only format, this is going to be a very visual episode, so I suggest you go over to YouTube and watch the video for this one. Audio alone may be a little bit... it won't be sufficient, really. But I'm still going to be talking about lots of things that are audio only. But I think today you're going to want to watch the video for this one. Because that's what I did after being told you haven't drawn anything in a while, you're a fraud by my wife. And I guess, you know, I joked that the last thing I ever drew as an artist was the woman I love and have chosen to spend the rest of my life with. And clearly that just wasn't enough for her. So I'm going to have to draw something else. And I asked people in the Telegram group, does anyone have anything they want me to draw? I'm thinking of doing something special for the next Truther Therapy session. And people reached out to me, a couple of people, and they sent me the pets. It's always pets. People love their pets, don't they? And I understand, you know, because I've recently lost my family, Jack Russell, and my mum and dad's house. You know, she passed away very recently, and I know how much we can love our pets. So I understand that people want to get them drawn, and I'm cool with that. So I couldn't do it all, so I did choose one to draw, and I think the person who sent me this deserves to have this drawn for them, because they are a good friend, have supported me for a long time, me and Keely in many ways, and it's my moderator, Wendy. And she sent me a picture of her cat who has sadly passed away. And here's the picture. I printed it off. Here it is. And I've decided, I will draw this for her. So that's what I've been doing last night. And about an hour before I started this, I have been finishing off the video and I've been drawing. It took me about 3 hours, maybe 3 or 4 hours, give or take. And I've sped up the video at 2.5 times speed. And it's about 1 hour 9 for the total thing. It's not actually finished. And I'll explain that as we go along, but it's good enough for the video. So what we're going to do today, you're going to watch the video that I have recorded. And I'm just going to talk. And I want to talk about a lot of things because art is near and dear to me. I have my degree in fine art. I have some stories to tell and some experiences about going through the industry, and my aspirations and dreams and how they were crushed and taken away from me through just absolute pretentious nonsense. I'll get into it soon. Sorry, I was going off on one there. But yeah, it's personal. I took it personally, shall we say. And I think it's good to talk about because not only that, it leads into things like the industry, the corruption of creation. You can start to get very biblical when you start talking about creativity and art and creation itself and what it means to be a creator and made in the image of God, who is the ultimate creator as well. And to talk about the nuance issues that arise in the consciousness of an artist of what is and isn't permissible as a Christian to create. Thinking about phrases like "Thou shalt make no graven image of anything under heaven or on earth," and what are we to make of that? When also we see these ornate, beautiful cathedrals that were possibly built during a millennial reign of Christ. And I get a constant barrage of messages from people saying Christ wouldn't allow such things to be built during his millennial reign. These things are covered in gargoyles and ancient Greek gods. This has nothing to do with Christ. And we'll get into it. We'll cover these ideas and concepts as we watch the video. And we'll talk about many things along the way. And I think we can just have a chilled out conversation today. And I'll be there with the chat, watching you guys in the chat as well while I'm talking. And we can have a back and forth, But here is the video. Now, what I'm going to have to do, the video didn't render in time. It's only halfway towards rendering. What I have done, I am capturing, as you can see on the screen here, if it will come up and allow me to do it, the screen. And what I've done here is, I'll move it out of the way so you can see, I've zoomed in on the actual thing, the video itself, here, and let it playing in the iMovie software. And in the top corner, you see that circle, that semicircle, that means it's halfway to rendering. So I couldn't get the video just to play through OBS, but I'm going to screen capture this video as I play it. And we'll do some talking. So let me just get this started quickly. Let's play on there. And yes, so you guys can watch this now. It won't be the highest quality. It may drop a couple of frame rates, but you'll get the gist. And it's worth mentioning now, I did use a DJI camera with a gimbal, but it seemed to be doing an autofocus thing throughout, which can be annoying for some people. And all I can really say is get over it. That's just life. Things don't always go as planned. And this is the best you're going to get. So there we go. That's all I have to say on that. But enjoy the drawing while I talk. And talking about the creative process, like I said, it's been 5 years since I have put a pencil to paper in any serious capacity. So what you're seeing here is going to be a little bit rusty, shall we say. This is probably not peak artistic Paul, let's put it that way. But it's a warm-up. It's something to get me back into it, and I'm thankful for that opportunity that was given to me, and to have be given the honor of drawing something so personal to such a close friend of mine. So here it is. And as you can see, I started with the ear in the top corner. That's kind of, when it comes to drawing, and you got to pick a starting point, you got to start somewhere. And I'd like to do the outline, the overall outline of everything. Not the details, just the outline. And I started with the tip of the ear, so I can kind of get it in relation as a beginning point to how it looks on paper. And I kind of just did a profile, as you can see there, loosely. And surprisingly, as this goes on, you'll see I pretty much got it right the first time here. That profile you see there is pretty much identical to the photo. I got it exactly right the first time, and that's rare. I think it's a fluke. I'm not that good usually it's wonky and sloppy and all over the place, and you've got to kind of correct it throughout the drawing process. But I realized as I went on, like, I'm making very little correction to this profile I did at the start, this outline. There's some minor corrections, but it's like, I got lucky. Let's call it beginner's look, so-called, or 5 years beginner look. You know, I won't say it's normally this easy, but I got lucky there. And as you can see, drawing as a process, for people who don't really know, it's long, it's tedious. It does take a long time. You do have to have patience, because it's kind of like a printer. You're doing it like line by line, layer by layer, stroke by stroke. And you're doing what a printer does, but like 50 times slower, like 150 times slower. You know? And you do kind of have to work from one point and work outwards from it. So as you can see, it's the ear is my beginning reference. And every line you make as you move along has to be in relation to the last thing you created. I know this is sounding a little bit strange, but if you want to try and make it realistic and you want to try and copy something perfectly, you've got to always be aware of the next thing you're about to draw next to it. And you got to make sure it looks right, you know. So it's long. And what I do, I start with what's called an F pencil, and it's a very, very hard graphite pencil. And as a result, the lines you make, as you can see here, are extremely faint, and they don't really make much of an impact on the page or the paper. And this lets me just scribble. As you can see, I'm what's called a pencil scratcher in the art world. My drawing style is lots and lots of scribbles that kind of slowly become a line. So as you see, I just did the outline there of an eyeball. Now for most people, a lot of people in graphic design, they would just draw that line as one fail swoop. I drew that line by doing thousands of little scratches because that's how I keep it in order. That's the way I do it. Not everyone has that same style, but that's just the kind of the way I do it. Maybe I'm too meticulous because the process takes a long time, but I don't allow myself to make the mistake that I have to kind of correct later. That's kind of my ethos behind it all. But yeah, I'm scratching away here with a very faint F pencil. That's how I begin drawing. So you kind of get a 101 class here of how to draw, I suppose. And this is actually a cool little thing. What you see, it's a rubber that was in my wife's pencil case. I've never had a rubber like this before, and it was extremely handy. I usually use the one on the left there next to the pencil sharpener in the pencil case with the black rubber, or a putty rubber, but that other thing was so handy for this, and I think I'll be using it forever from now on, to be honest. And it was useful. So yeah, what I'm doing now is I'm just trying to get all the patterns of the cat's fur kind of loosely marked into the right place. It's not about detail right now when you start drawing. It's just about getting the shape right and roughly getting the shade, the light and dark tones in the right place. And again, this is 2.5 times. And how long is the video I'm going on for now? Let me have a look. So I've been playing it for 5 minutes. So this is 15 minutes in already, roughly, or 12 minutes in, you're seeing here, just to get this far. So it is a long process. But as I was doing this, I kind of realized, like, what I was missing for so many years, because I am in a zone here, and it's like a Zen feeling. It really is. It's like you're in meditation, I suppose, is a good way to describe it. I mean, I'm not meditating necessarily, you know. I'm hyper focused more so. And meditation's more about clearing your mind. But this is in a sense, you become so hyper focused on what you're doing that your mind just does become clear. It's an odd feeling, and I think only people who have really meticulously focused on something for 3 hours straight non-stop can kind of appreciate. And I guess that comes in the form of artists of many kinds, not just the medium of drawing or painting, let's say, but also video making or something. You can really get into it, and before you know it, it's been 3 hours, it's 2 a.m, and you've only just finished off one segment of the drawing, you know? And I forgot what that was like. And at the end of this session, which by the way is 3 hours, what you're going to see here, 3 to 4 hours, I'll tell you where I stop and go to sleep and pick it back up again. It seems semi-seamless, but you'll see. But at the end of it, it was 2 a.m. I was like, I've got to go to bed. I've got to sleep here. What am I doing? I've got an infant who's going to wake me up at 7 o'clock. What am I doing? And I looked at myself in the mirror and I looked so pale and I had such like red splotches all over my face. And I was like exhausted from the extreme concentration in a way that exercise just doesn't do it. My brain and my mind was exhausted to the point where my body was having detrimental side effects. But it wasn't like I didn't feel bad about it. Like when you go to the gym and you work out really hard and your muscles are aching and you're exhausted, but you feel great about it. It's like that, but for the mind. That's kind of what drawing excessively for 3 hours feels like. And the thing about drawing is, and this is a bit controversial, maybe this is an opinion more than a fact, but it's something I've noticed. You either can or you can't. It's not something you necessarily learn to do. Now, I don't remember ever being taught how to draw. I have always just been able to draw as a child. And I'm not trying to like brag. I'm not trying to like put other people down who have worked really hard. Through practice and time and a lot of efforts, I'm sure people can learn to master the skills and necessary for perspective and all the math, and all this technique and all these type of things that are needed to make a drawing perfect and all that type of stuff and to know how to do it. But I didn't need any of that. I think and this is a case for most artists. Some of the best ones you see out there, I tend to notice, and I've met a lot through my life, they just can do it. They didn't really need to think about what they were doing, and they're not really using techniques that were taught to them. They're just doing what they do, and it comes out the way it comes out. And this is just something I've noticed. Those who like learn the correct techniques and have taken classes on learning how to draw, they usually lack style. Or you can distinctly see that they've picked up somebody else's style. Those who are just naturals tend to have a particular style, and you can usually recognize it's their work straight away. That's kind of the difference. And does that mean that the work people create is inherently bad because they haven't got their own style? No. You can have technically proficient and impressive artwork through people who have learnt to draw who couldn't previously. Yes, I've seen some impressive things, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, I think I like artwork by people who have kind of, you can tell they just bleed art. Is that the best way to describe it? They didn't need to be told how to do it. They just do it. And I think that comes through, and that's something I've always tried to show through my own work. I have a style, and you can see it. I mean, this is kind of, I'm trying to stay technically proficient here. I'm trying to get it just photorealism is what I'm going for. But at the same time, as real as it looks at the end, you can see, you can tell, and even I can see that I know I've drawn this. It's kind of, you can. And I'll compare I have some of my old drawings I'll show you after this, and you can kind of tell, yep, that's definitely my style that you're seeing come out here. And it is through the pencil scratch method, I think, is where you can distinctly tell it's me. There's no fluid lines anywhere. There's no line you can just follow in my drawing. It's all scribble. And when you get up close, it is a mess. But as soon as you start stepping back, the form suddenly comes out from it. And that's kind of what I like to do. And it's quite difficult, to be honest, this drawing cats and pets, because it's all fur, isn't it? It's all hair. But I don't have time to draw every single individual strand. So this is where you need style. You need to stylize it so you can get away with less detail, but maintain the image quality. And that's kind of what you're seeing happening here. I'm just trying to get the shadows down. I'm just getting the shape. I'm getting the form. So all this is about, this is the beginning stuff. The first hour and a half is just getting the details loosely mapped out with the lightest pencil you can possibly get. One big mistake I think a lot of artists make, a lot of people who draw make, and I made this for many years before I corrected myself, is they go too heavy too early. They go too dark too soon. And it's harder to remove darkness than it is to add. Than it is to add light with pencil, especially when it comes to pencil and graphite drawing. And I tend to find when you do go too dark, it gets a little bit too, I don't know, it loses something. It's too high contrast and it loses its detail. And it also seems overworked. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It gives this heavy overworked feel to it that removes it from reality then. I mean, a lot of people who tend to go too dark and too heavy, I find they like to blend a lot. So they will like rub with the finger or with a piece of paper or something over the pencil they've drawn, and they'll create this smudge effect, and they think that's how they create shadow and shade and stuff. I've never been one to ever do that. I need to draw the shade and shadow individually myself, because I find it creates that block dark effect that you don't want, because it overworks the image. So I try to start as light as possible, and I use minimal darkness at the end just to accentuate features. So like I said, I'm not perfect. As you see, it's all there on the screen now. I just removed quite a lot of what I just drew because it wasn't right. Okay, I was not happy with the way it went. I had to correct that, or it would have driven me crazy. So I'm redrawing it again here, as you can see these patterns in the middle. And later on, you'll see as well, I completely just do it all again. About an hour from now, I just do the whole thing again, that middle section, because it's just not right. And it has to be in the right place in these early stages before I finalize with the dark details with a softer pencil. That's how you would do it. So you'd use like a 2B or a 4B and then the 6B. And I was lucky to find my wife had a 9B stashed away, which is like jet black, which is very rare for a pencil. So that came handy in the end, just for those details. So yeah, while this is going, I think I've given enough about my method there and my thought processes to what's going on here. I guess we should probably talk about art itself. Now, I grew up with aspirations. I've like I said, I've always been able to draw. So I kind of grew up thinking, yeah, I'm probably going to end up doing something creative in my life. Probably. And then I lost that at the age of like 15, 14, and I suddenly got the delusions and I'm going to be a doctor for some reason. Maybe I watched too much Scrubs. I don't know. I was easily influenced by media, let's say. And I wanted to help people, fundamentally. That's kind of always been what I'm all about. And I thought, I need to be a doctor. That's how they help people the most, right? You know, how naive I was. I then dropped all my artistic aspirations, even though I basically done everything art related throughout my education up until that point, like non-stop. You know, I studied fine art and graphics, and I did textiles as well as my choices. And I was just kind of, I've always done music and played instruments. I played saxophone, I played guitar, I played piano, drums, everything you can imagine, you know. And I can even beatbox, believe it or not. Maybe I'll save that for another time. But it's kind of, creativity was my thing. I was at every after school club or anything to do with art. I was there within the school. And it's kind of, I think everyone assumed I'm going to go on to do art. And I kind of blindsided my art teacher by saying, no, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to go and do maths, science, biology, and chemistry. You know what I mean? And they were like, what are you talking about, Paul? Why are you doing that? You're like, what are you doing? And I was like, I don't know. I just want to help people. You know, I want to be a doctor. Anyway, I did 1 year of those things, maths, chemistry, biology, and philosophy. And I failed miserably. Like, I failed awfully. Like, spectacularly failed. Like, I just couldn't care less about maths. Like, I hated it. And it's not like I didn't understand it, but I had no effort or drive to want to be there or do it or put the work in or even think about it, you know. And chemistry as well. And philosophy I did okay in, but the rest, you know, chemistry and maths, I was just, and biology, I was just like, nah, I don't want to be here. It's all a lot of nonsense and it's boring. And it's like, kind of like, I realized I should have stuck to what I was good at. So I went back into art, and I went back and did a BTEC, it's called in the UK, in art and design. And I ended up finishing those 3 years, top of the class, with triple distinction star, and I never felt like I worked a day in my life. And I would watch people, growing up in these art classes with me who were staying after school for hours to like finish their coursework or get their project done or do all these extra things and put in that time and effort because they were really striving hard to get the high grade that they really wanted. And they would end up with a average, okay grade, whatever. And I never turned up. I was never there. I put in the bare minimum effort as far as I was concerned. And I left with the highest mark. And that's what I mean by there's a difference. There is this, I'm not trying to be elitist or anything. It's a real thing. It's some people don't have to try when it comes to this. It just comes naturally to them. But, again, as I'm explaining, it doesn't mean we're great at everything. I'm terrible at math. And it's because of a severe lack of interest that I will never ever be good at it because I just can't bring myself to focus or care about such things. It's beyond my capabilities. But where I'm weak in one area, I'm stronger in another, which again is creativity. And that's what we have to do, as people who are lovingly and fearfully made by God, we all have a job to do, a role, a purpose, and our interests are varied. We are truly diverse in that respect, and that's a wonderful thing. We don't want everyone to be in the same, doing the same stuff, And anyway, back to the story of art. I then went on to university with aspirations of breaking into the art world, becoming a big artist because I had the skill and the knowledge and the pretentiousness at that time to understand that the game you have to play in the art world, the verbiage, the verbose language you need to have to explain your nonsense you've created away as something as profound when it more likely isn't profound. And it's kind of, I had the gift of the gab, as you guys know, and I was ready to get into the industry. And I suppose I played it for a while. But as I got older, and wiser and had more experiences and started looking around me and then fell into the conspiracy stuff, in 2014 in like my first year at university, I started to see how the game really works. And it's like, oh, it's not about having talent. It's about who you know. And I hated it. And I would end up going to these like cheese and wine gallery openings at people's houses or in these like empty warehouses they'd rented out. You know what I mean? And it's kind of, all the artwork was terrible. It was like, and I'm not messing here, it was plaster casts of people's anuses on the wall. You know what I mean? It's just piles of rubbish in the corner or quote unquote found artwork, and it's kind of, there was no skill involved with any of it. There was nothing. It was vacant bullshit. And they were all patting each other on the back, and clapping each other along as though they did something profound. And they were all kind of, they had these like explanations for what they were doing that had no basis or grounding in reality whatsoever, that everybody clapped along as though what they said was profound or deep in some way. And I was sick. It made me sick to my stomach to see all this. Because it's kind of like, well, what's the point then? What's the point in learning or having any talent or skill when the mediocre are out here running the joint? You know what I mean? And they don't select those who actually have the talent or the skills because they're all circle jerking each other in their mediocrity instead. And it's kind of, that's the industry, isn't it? And you look at modern art, and I was watching like postmodern artwork coming out from the modernist movements, and I've seen the decline and the progression through the 20th century. Sorry, the progressive decline throughout the 20th century of artwork to the postmodernists today. And everything became ugly and deconstructed to the point where it wasn't about the artwork, but how much you could bullshit your way about what you made with words. It made me sick to my stomach. And I suppose in a way I got a little bit jaded with the industry as a result. Didn't know. I got into the conspiracy stuff. I started making videos instead, and I guess I put down the pencil. I put down the paintbrush Because it's like, what's the point? The industry will never care about talent. The mainstream industry, the gallery stuff, which I aspired for, And as time, obviously, my philosophies have changed a little bit. I was young then. I was like 23. I'm 30. I'm almost 33. I'm 32 years old now. And I guess as I've gotten older and I've established my channel, and I've become a video content creator, I make adverts, I've channeled my creativity and artwork into other things. In a way, I kind of feel like, well, I've kind of forged my own thing, in a way. And I've advocated through my platform quality, objectivity, objective standards of beauty that are not defined by people's personal opinions, but just are. And it's, when something is beautiful at the core, and it can never be seen as ugly from anyone's perspective. That when you see it, it hits you in the soul, and it's kind of, I've always advocated for that in a way. And as now I pick up my pencil again here 5 years after doing nothing, but after, drawing my wife, I kind of feel like maybe it's worth it again. And if not to, become a famous drawer or artist in the galleries, but to have a place where I can showcase my artwork and the artwork of other people, by the way, that I believe it is worthy of showing people. Not to show off, but to inspire, to say to others, if you have the skill and you have the talent, do it. Don't let the industry stop you, in a sense. If you can't break into their galleries and their industries and their false reality, make your own. It's not impossible, and that's kind of what I want to inspire younger generations to do. I'm too old. I think it's too late for me. And I've gone into the video making game. That's kind of what all I'm really ever going to be known for. I'm the Nephilim Clowns guy. I'm an author now. I'm a writer. I channeled my creativity in other ways. But if you can paint and draw, you can inspire in ways that are probably more profound than what I do. And I don't want people to be jaded in this little season to think that it's not worth it, or to look at the industry and think, what's the point? So I might as well give up. Because it got me, and I kind of feel ashamed that I let it do that to me and take something away from me that I love, and to give up, in a sense, to say, well, what's the point? And I realized, well, the point isn't to become a famous artist, is it? It's to do what you love and to create beauty and to channel your creativity and time into making something worthy of being, something that isn't ugly, to create something and put beauty back into the world is kind of what we need in this time. Because it's getting dark out there. The hour's late and it's getting dark. And so doing this drawing for Wendy, in a way, I'm hoping will help bring some light into her own life in some way. And of course, Wendy, send me your address to remind me. I'll send this to you in the post once I've added the finishing touches. Free of charge. I'll send it your way. Don't worry. And you can have it. Because there's another thing. When I left university, I had piles of artwork I'd created and paintings and drawings of all sorts of crazy stuff, just nonsense, and sacred geometry stuff as well. And it's kind of like, I never once felt an attachment to anything I've created, to the point where I had to cling on to it and frame it and put it on a wall and never let it go. I've lost everything I've ever drawn practically throughout history of my life. I don't know where half the stuff is. I found some old sketchbooks in preparation for this, with a few scattered drawings here and there, but I pretty much don't know where anything I've ever drawn or painted throughout history has gone. It's vanished. Because I gave it away to people for free. I just give it out. I said, here, take it, do what you want with it. At the end of university, I gave a lot of it away to people I've never seen since. And that's fine. I don't miss it. I don't care about it, because it was never about clinging on to my artwork in some way. It was about putting it out there. If some people find some value in it and it inspires them in some way, then have it. Take it. Whatever. That's fine. I'd rather move on to the next thing anyway. So I've never had any. I personally have never felt much of a. How would you describe it? Like a need to hold on, a personal attachment, should I say, to my own creations, my own artwork. If you love something, let it go, I guess is what we're trying to say there. I don't know, I don't, that's just me personally. Maybe some people don't see it that way. But yeah, like I said, this everything I draw, I mean, isn't really for me, is it? Really, unless it's just a doodle or a scribble because I'm trying to practice something in particular. I was trying to master something, yeah. But even then, if people wanted it, I'd probably give it away eventually anyway, or it'd end up I'd just lose it and probably never think about it ever again. And I find it odd because I've always said this about when it comes to drawing. It doesn't matter how long it's been since I paint or draw something, I never forget. I'm watching this now, and it's kind of like, I remember the feeling when I picked up the pencil and just cracked on with this. It felt like it hadn't been 5 years. I hadn't missed any time, and I hadn't lost really much of the skill. You know what I mean? It's like riding a bike. You don't really forget. And once you're into it, I was really into it. It's kind of, it's yeah, you feel it. You feel it. You're just there with it. But anyway, there's a bit of background to my break into the art industry, and I know other people have probably felt something similar. I felt this jadedness, like it's what's the point in even carrying on? And I suppose those who haven't been in it probably won't understand what I'm talking about. And there's a lot of nonsense work being created now, but I think maybe it's coming full circle. I think maybe even the general populace are getting sick of it, to be honest. I hope so. I really do hope so. But as I was drawing this as well, I was thinking about the Millennial Kingdom stuff. And I was actually listening to Madeline from her Leaving Babylon, her recent video, and she was talking about a lot of things to do with the Millennial Kingdom. Great video, by the way. Go and check it out. Like, there was lots of good stuff in there. And she was, well, I was listening to her and I was thinking about art and creativity. Like, because like I said, people had always said to me, there's no way all these Romanesque or Gothic cathedrals and all this type of stuff was built during Christ's reign. He just wouldn't do that, you know. Christ would never allow such a thing in his kingdom. It's idols to false gods and all this type of stuff. And as I was trying to explain to you here, you know, the art of creating something is not always for the purpose of veneration or adulation or worship. Am I worshipping the image of Wendy's cat here by drawing it? Is that what I'm doing? I've explained to you my meaning and my process and why I'm doing these things. Does anything I've said to you there at any moment indicate that I'm in some way venerating cats as gods? Like, I don't think it does it? I'm doing it because I want to bring joy to somebody who loved this cat. And my own selfish reasons, I want to practice drawing again. It's a win-win, you know, for everybody involved. But I don't worship cats because I spent 3 hours drawing one. And in the same sense, I don't think those who may have created sculptures of old gods of the Norse or Greek pantheons to adorn these Greco-Roman, as we call them, styled architecture, who may have lived through the millennial reign, I don't think they were necessarily making those simply because they worshipped false gods or idolized what they were drawing in any way or sculpting. People do it for many reasons. Now imagine if you lived during the millennial reign and you were given longevity. You know, you were drinking from the waters of life, of running waters of life, you know, and you were being healed by frequency bells, and your lifespan was no longer 125 years max, but it was perhaps 300 to 400 years, you know, and you'd already lived quite a long while in a world of paganism and gods during Christ, you know, and through tribulation maybe, and you were a resurrected saint of somebody who from Abraham's bosom as well, who was living during the times of the pagan worship of idols and Greek gods and Roman gods, and you've been resurrected into the kingdom, you know, and now you live forever. And, you know, the final judgment, the second death, has no sting on you anymore, and you've made it to your glorified bodies, and you've been resurrected as God's faithful servant, you know, and there you are. Well, what do you do with that time? You remember. You remember a world you lived in. You remember a time where people did sacrifice to strange gods and communicate with the oracles, and you lived during this time of persecution, or during a time where you were trying to convince people that, you know, no, these gods are false. You need to get rid of these idols, and it's kind of the traumas you experienced during those times and the things you saw, the loved ones you may have seen fall victim to worshipping these idols or even being sacrificed. You know, you lived during this time, and you probably think to yourself, I don't want to forget those people. I don't want to forget that time. I want people to remember that this happened. At least not for the victim's sake. You know, so what you do, you make artwork to process it. You make artwork to think about what happened at that time, to tell the story of human history. Not necessarily to venerate the gods it represents, but to immortalize in stone a part of time of human endeavors and growth and history where things were a certain way. So you can contrast it to the way things are now in comparison, and you can see how far we've come. And you would tell those stories in stone so people don't forget. It's another possible reason why people built things which seem grotesque and odd to us during a millennial kingdom, because they had the time, the resources, and the need. They needed to do it. They had to process it. And art and creativity, I feel, is one of the finest ways and one of the lost arts humanity has to have real therapy. Like real therapy, you know, just like process and deal with things. So I don't have an issue with statues of gods and gargoyles and things on the sides of cathedrals during a millennial reign of Christ. I don't see how that's a problem. Yes, Christ himself probably wasn't making much artwork, but why would he need to? You know, but humans do. People do. It's kind of in us to be creative and do those things. We can't really help ourselves, can we? It's kind of like it's just how we do things. So there we go. Anyway, for some reason my chat has disappeared. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just have to quickly take that dock away, and we'll open it back up. And we'll see if it comes back so I can actually see what you guys are saying, because I have no idea right now what you guys are saying, if anything. Nope, I've got nothing. Hopefully I'm not just talking into the air again and no one can hear anything at all. I don't think so. It's usually okay, but let me just... I'm going to have to just quickly pause this for 1 second, guys, okay? Just so I can get a chat up to see. So we'll take a quick break there. And I'm just going to play a quick advert while I quickly sort this out, if that's all right. So bear with me, guys. Are you tired of the same old conversations? Do you often find yourself struggling to know what to say? Are you over discussing the news, sports ball, or the weather? It's time to put boring discussions behind you by leaving a copy of The Nephilim Look Like Clowns on your coffee table, your toilet, your local library, mother's car, boss's office desk, or that person you really like's bed instead.
What the hell is this?
Oh, that? Why, it's just a book about how the modern costume of a clown is a caricature of ancient giants and modern demons.
Stay away from my children.
This is a conversation you can't wait to have.
My family used to think I was crazy, but thanks to the Nephilim Look Like Clowns, they know I'm crazy.
The Nephilim looks like clowns. It's no laughing matter. Yeah, okay, so I've just opened up the chat in a pop-up window. I think if I quickly click this, I may just be able to... Just bear with me. This might look a bit weird for you guys. No, I've got nothing. It didn't work. It didn't work, never mind. Yeah, I don't have the chat, guys, so I can't interact with you at the moment as much as I want to. I'm keep refreshing it here and hoping it keeps coming back, but again, I've got nothing. Let me just quickly open this. I've got my pop-out chat here. Just gonna... Yeah, I know you guys are probably seeing something crazy right now. There we go. Right. I think I've got it. I think I've nailed it. I think I can now do both simultaneously, kind of. I just want to open this here. You guys can't see this, but I think, yeah, you're just seeing the drawing happen, which is good. But I'm going to interact with the chat now. Let's see what people are saying. Let's have a bit of back and forth. They don't have their own art stories they want to tell while we see Wendy's cat here being drawn. Now let's have a look. Oh, it's got a super chat from Straight Down the Barrel. Love your work, bro. Quick question. Do you think the whole creation is just a cosmic test of good and evil, of who you choose and of where you go? Do I think the whole creation is a cosmic test? No, I don't think God created this world to test us, but if he did, we failed. That's basically how I kind of see it. I don't see it as like, it was made specifically for us to fall, so to see whether or not we can claw ourselves back. I don't think God did that. I think he gave us free will, and with that free will, we chose rebellion. And he noticed that, he saw our fall and our suffering as a result, and the pain. And obviously the pain our enemy has caused us as well within this world, who also were in rebellion, and he gave us a way to come back to him, and that's all he could really do, because he allowed his children to make their own choices, as any good father should. So it's kind of, there you go. I think that's kind of where we're at and how we end up in this situation. I don't believe in the whole duality mythos of good and a perpetual eternal battle between good and evil. Will the good forces win out over the bad forces? It's very matrixy, yin yang, Taoist principled. I don't know how else can you say it. The force, the dark side versus the light side stuff. I'm not into that. That's more of kind of like roots that kind of in Zoroastrianism as well. I think duality is a principle that applies only to the nature of the creation, but not the creator. So yes, we live in a world of dualities, of hot, cold, left, right, up, down, and I think the machine functions through that symmetry, and it's perfectly necessary part of the creation, and there's nothing inherently wrong with duality in that respect. It's just how a creation functions. But good and evil, and, I think like ethereal concepts like that, don't also come under that dualistic umbrella. But that seems to be what most people assume. We live in a world of hot and cold, of waves and troughs, of lefts and rights and hards and softs. And then they also incorporate into all those physical things I just said, good and evil. And it's kind of not actually, I don't think you can put good and evil and classify it as the same thing. I really don't think so. I think there is technically no such thing, and bear with me here, I'll try and explain myself as best I can. There's technically no such thing as evil, necessarily, just distance from God. So, for example, I think a good way to explain it is shadows don't actually exist in and of themselves. They only exist because there is an absence of something, which is light. Do you get that? So it's not that there's darkness and then there's light. Darkness doesn't exist tangibly. Only light exists, and the gradients away from it into what we define as a dualistic principle of darkness. And I think we can apply that same principle to good and evil. The further away from God you get, the more something is what you could define from that spectrum as evil. And that's kind of it. It's that's all it really is. And it's very hard to explain that and to understand. It's a kind of a psychedelic principle. And it's something not everyone will integrate into their worldview, I suppose, or see it from that way. But yeah, that's kind of how I have come to understand it in a sense. And people assume like there has to be evil for there to be good. Without evil, you wouldn't know what good is, type of thing. And it's kind of like implying like evil is good's equal. It's kind of the perpetual balance of darkness and light throughout eternity is necessary for the creation to exist, type of thing. And it's kind of like, I think people have taken physical principles about the nature of them of the creation and have applied that to ethereal concepts such as good and evil, which is an error, is how I kind of see it. And I'm getting pretty philosophical and difficult to explain there. I think you kind of know what I'm saying. So yeah, there you go. That's kind of a roundabout answer there for your super chat question there, straight down the barrel. But I don't think God's testing us exactly. He's given us the path. He's given us every choice and every option and way to get back to him. And if you want to take it, take it. That's it, really. That's it. He hasn't purposefully created this scenario just to see. I don't think our God is that pedantic or petty, to be honest. Darkness is conceptual like the horizon, says Just Peter. That's a good point. So Wendy's saying about the cat here, in his prime, he was almost 30 pounds of solid muscle. He was a big cat. Standing on his hind legs, he came up to my waist. I'm 5'7" for reference. Wow, I think that's quite impressive. He was a tabby in ginger undercoats, so you could see so much red in him. Excellent. Yeah, you can see the character in his face here. You can definitely see it in the eyes as well. By the way, this isn't finished. Far from finished. This is just me slightly getting darker now and adding more and more detail. I correct a lot of this very soon. I'm just very quickly, before I go to bed, applying the background here. And as you can see, the eyes just aren't quite finished yet. There's not enough shading on them or light reflecting. And the fur isn't dark enough down the nose or on the cheeks. And it's a bit of a mess on the chest right now. So this isn't a final product. You'll see it as it develops. It gets a little bit more refined. Because that's what drawing is. It's a process. But yeah. Verkjun says, in grade 8 art class, we had to make a mask, and I ended up making one of the Rakshasas along with a poem I wrote because I happened to read about them in a book I got. It's bizarre in light of your work. That's true, yeah, the Rakshasas of Sri Lanka are definitely fascinating. Those masks are terrifying, aren't they? Absolutely. I like that much better than the hermetic concept of duality that's been in the back of my head, says Jonathan Hubert. Yeah, and yeah, that's... I mean, hermetic is a good way to describe it. Alchemical, dualistic, Gnostic to some extent. You know, it's that's a broad umbrella and perhaps the wrong phrase to use for many other people. But it's not the biblical understanding. It's like it's not a good versus evil. It's not like the devil's equal to God or something like that. There's just varying distances away from God, which is what, from our perception, living in the system, appears as a duality of good versus evil, but it's not really. That's an illusion, is what I would say. And I think it takes a while to understand that. And I think you can also live your life never understanding it just fine as well. It's not to say you must get this or else you're living a lie. I'm not saying that. That's just silly. Seeing your pencil kit reminds me that 2 weeks ago I saw a video about number 2 pencils and ended up learning about all the numbered pencils. Yeah. Well, to be honest, this is I unraveled my own kit of pencils and I realised this one I'd found in the cupboard, of which is my wife's, is way better, so I've used hers instead. I'm sure she won't mind. So Joseph Buckingham asks, Paul, in your opinion, why do you think so many people think Jesus was talking about this generation when clearly he was speaking about the people in his time? It's because they've been lied to by their leaders. And their leaders have been lied to by their leaders who are disseminating the information further down. Because our history is completely made up and a lie, and we don't know where we are in time, the only way to make sense of Jesus' words from that concept of that utterly disregarding Christianity is completely false is to insert 2,000 years. Because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. He must have been talking about us in the future because Christ hasn't returned yet and the millennial kingdom hasn't happened yet. So he must have been talking about a future distant 2,000 years from now fig tree generation, after Israel reestablishes Jerusalem once more and rebuilds a third temple, because we haven't seen any of these prophecies come. Jesus isn't here, the new heaven and earth hasn't come up. Then because people don't know the conspiratorial angle that they've been lied to about history, and a lot of them don't know about 70 AD and the destruction of the temple and the 1,260 Jewish calendar day siege, the 42-month siege, the 4-year siege on Jerusalem during the Roman Jewish War that started in 66 AD and ended in 70 AD with the destruction of the temple, just as Jesus prophesied in Luke when talking about the fig tree generation, as it would come to pass in their time, because they don't know the history of the destruction of the temple already happening. They can only assume from that ignorant standpoint that it must be yet to come. That's it. And they're just not being told about certain true events of history, which prove prophecy, and that Jesus was talking about those people of their time. And because people don't know what time they're living in, and the millennial kingdom has been buried, they don't know it's already happened, then it has to be yet to come, okay? And that's all so they've started reinterpreting all scripture as allegorical of a future generation. God was talking directly to me now through those people of that time, and it's the only way people can try and square it with the false paradigm they're living under, which is that of futurism, of everything's yet to come. I mean, like I said, the problem is with our history is everything's been dated wrong as well. People think Revelation was written in like 96 AD, 93 AD or something, when it's impossible. Because everything is described. First of all, he doesn't talk about the destruction of the temple, because he was talking about there's something that's yet to come, which is odd. Also, how old would he have been, John, by that point? If it is the same John, that we're talking about, who prophesies of Jesus to come, if it is that same John who baptized people in water, then he would have been what, 90 something? Is it likely he wrote it before the destruction of the temple to tell people it's all about to come upon us now, guys, quickly? And it was maybe written during maybe before 66 AD, maybe during the 40 AD for all we know, perhaps during the time of Nero or earlier, predicting Nero to come. I don't know. We can't know. I think the dates are all messed up. I think they erroneously dated Revelation to be written in the 90 AD because there were so many prophecies that came true. And secularists have justified that by saying he must have written it after the fact of all these events. There's no way he actually predicted it was going to happen through prophecy. He must have written it afterwards, to explain it away, like making him a charlatan, that type of thing. But there's no evidence for that, really. So yeah, like I said, there's many reasons why people believe the futurist doctrine. It's just all they've known. It's what they were raised with. It's what they were told by people they trust was the truth. And those people were told by people they trusted that was the truth. And it goes all the way back to a lie, to cover up the truth of the matter that we're in Satan's little season. That's why people, when they see Jesus clearly talking about this generation being the people in front of him, they can't accept that interpretation. It's not in their mental framework to understand. He must have been talking about us 2,000 years later. He predicted the destruction of the temple, but the temple isn't in Jerusalem, and Israel has only just been established as a nation now. So they must be rebuilding the temple to allow the Antichrist to stand in the temple and declare himself as God, so they can then destroy the temple to fulfill that prophecy. It's like, what a ridiculously convoluted plan. Or was the temple destroyed already and there isn't going to be a re-establishing of Israel and a third temple being built? There's nothing, it doesn't say that, but it has to work that way for the lie history they are living under, the false history they're living under. That's the only way Christianity can work. And it establishes these people in the Middle East as superior over everybody else, doesn't it? And it's people win from having that worldview ingrained into the Gentiles, shall we say? And I'm not buying any of it, And I've had a lot of comments recently about from people talking about that and trying to throw these passages at me, saying he was talking about future generation, fig tree generation, a generation yet to come, Peter, apocalyptic language. He got it from Psalms. 1,000 years is a day to God, and a day is 1,000 years. And it's kind of like, hang on, step back. All those erroneous interpretations you just gave of those passages of what you've been told they mean by people who probably mean well, but have also been lied to. When Peter was talking about a day is 1,000 years to the Lord, he was making the point in context of the passage that God's time is not our time, and he is patient. Okay? It wasn't literally saying like 1,000 years, therefore 2 days is 2,000 years. That's not what was going on there. He was just trying to make a point to the people around him at the time, saying, people might say, scoff at words is coming, and he's saying, God's patient. God's not working on our time. It's coming soon. People often throw 2 Timothy at me, and they're all like, our brothers who have erred in their prophecy and their teaching, is it Hermaeus? I can't remember the names and whatever. And they're saying that the second coming has already happened or something like that. The return of Christ has already come. Like, listen not to these people, because many have fallen away, but hold steadfast, because of their false teachings. And then he points it to me and says, ha! See, you're leading people astray with your false teachings. And it's kind of, you're just like those people who are saying Christ has already come back. And even Paul said that's wrong. It's like, well, yes, but where's your audience relevancy there? Paul was writing a letter to Timothy. He was talking to the people of his day, his contemporaries. And as far as I'm aware, Paul didn't live to see the destruction of the temple and tribulation. So yes, he was right to say those people in that time were wrong to say that Christ has already come back. He was 100% right in his time to say they are wrong. But not long after the events of the letters in Timothy, it did happen. So that's the point. It's kind of like, how does what Paul wrote to Timothy in that time period have anything to do with us now? Like, it doesn't. He was right to chastise them then, because yes, Christ hadn't returned then. But he did not long after. And that's it. That's how you explain that. It's not hard to explain either, but people have this view in their head that it's kind of like whatever was written in the New Testament wasn't for the people of its time. It's for us. And that's weird, isn't it? When you really think about why you don't do that with anyone else. We don't do that with any other book, ever. Any other history book. We don't do that. And I'm not saying lessons can't be learned that can apply to us today through reading these passages and applying them to our own life. Of course they can. But as much as it's an inspired word of God full of brilliant wisdom and ways to be, it's also a history book. You got to see it both ways. And historicism was the predominant view, I think, before futurism kind of took over. Anyway, back to the chat here. What's going on? Pearl asks, Paul, do you think futurism lie was intentionally spread by the powers that be, or just what happened when a reset after millennial reign came about? No, I think it's intentional. I think 100% it's a fully intentional deception by the powers that are in control, orchestrated by the devil himself in this little season. 100%. I can explain away why I think that, but I think it's obvious. That's just what Satan would do in his little season. Absolutely. It's the perfect way to cover it all up. Because you can't get rid of the Bible because there's too many. You can't get rid of people's faith because it's too obviously there and strong, and the Holy Spirit is doing its work. That's undeniable. But what you can do is confuse people about the time that they're in. And that's it. That's enough misdirection to throw them off. If you build a house and you're laying bricks, it only takes like one brick to be slightly out And the whole thing from then on is wonky that you build upon that foundation. Yeah, that's how it works. You know, it's one minor degree of error is all it takes to throw off the entire thing. And that's kind of what's happened here. Joseph Buckingham, your channel woke me up to what time we were in. Before I came across your channel, I was into all the conspiracies and wondered why we were being lied to so much. Thank you. I feel a kind of relief. Oh, well, that's good to know, Joseph. I'm glad I helped you feel that relief. Fingers crossed I am correct. Even if we're not, keep your faith in Jesus Christ, you know, and keep your eyes on the kingdom, regardless of what time we're actually in. I think personally, I think I'm pretty correct with this interpretation. I've not heard anything yet that has made me think otherwise. Personally, maybe some people have heard things that's good enough for them to prove otherwise, but for myself, I've not yet heard anything to contest this good enough or well enough. Personally, that's me personally. The lies run so deep, Paul. Enjoying your channel. Scriptures have been translated many times from original Old Hebrew. Do you trust the translations? Research says true names are Yahuwah and Yahusha. Yeah. I mean, translations of translations of translations is what we have. But I do think during the millennial kingdom, true translations into English from the Septuagint and the Greek have been created. And I think there are so many eyes on these books and translations that it's hard to change too much without people realizing very quickly and pointing it out and calling out deception. Because we can read the original Greek and we can compare the text, and any differences that we are there have been discussed ad nauseum and brought up and are in the forefront of our mind. But fundamentally, the core gospel doesn't really change. So I don't see the major issue, you know. And in terms of the whole true name thing, I think we need to not get too hung up on that. That can lead to some pretty divisive situations, which I think are wholly unnecessary personally. Thank you guys, I'm glad to be here, says Joseph. Not many people around me are aware of the time we are in. Yeah, we were a lonely bunch, aren't we? Still Prill, or has changed their name to From Conspiracy to Cry, says, our service was on Paul's letter to Timothy at church today. Paul's letter to Timothy at church today. Interesting. What are the odds, eh? What are the odds? First, second Timothy, Tim and Philemon. Yeah. Our Bible study is going through the pastoral epistles currently. Interesting. We're all listening today, Mark. I think I missed something there, Wendy. let me just go back in the chat. Did I miss anything before that? Paul could start a commissioned art business with his talent. I don't have the time, but thank you. I appreciate the compliment. I don't have time to start an art business as well as run a channel and write a book and all the rest of it. I'm also terrible at math, says Pearl. I'm glad I'm not alone. We all suck at math here, I'm sure. Maybe that's the common thread between all conspiracy theorists. We're all really bad mathematicians. Right, Wendy. Yeah. So Wendy's a bit of a writer from what I can see here. Wendy, don't give up. Go for it. You can definitely get in the zone writing. I've been there many a time. And dancing too. Draws a clown, not says. I'll show you some of my early drawings after this, actually, of where I did try and attempt to draw the Nephilim. I found some of my old sketchbooks, which are quite interesting. Ian Unslaved, I used to do plastic cast anus artwork. Honestly, some of the crap that came out of the university of the time was ridiculous. It looks like I'm coming to the end of this. I think there's 9 minutes left or 10 minutes left of this drawing. As you see, I'm adding detail to it now. I'm removing things. I'm adding hair effects to the drawing. I'm adding darker shades as I go to the pencil to accentuate certain features. But I'm always conscious never to go too dark everywhere else. I always want to maintain like a lightness to the image. So when you go too dark and detailed, it starts to look too grotesque. And I always want to keep it looking beautiful. I want it to look like the thing has life and beauty and, of course, its good side. often when people ask for like, it's funny because I remember I used to draw as a kid, like my parents, like they'd be sat next to me on a plane or something, and I'd spend 2 hours just drawing their profile or something like that, because that's what I did to pass the time as a kid. And I remember I'd show them what I'd drawn, and they were like, "Oh God, there's so much detail. Why did you put all the wrinkles in? Why did you put all the?" They were like in horror at what I had drawn, because it was a super photorealistic view of them. You know what I mean? With all the warts and blackheads and creases and everything included. And I, as a kid, I'm just like, but that's what you look like. That's you. That's exactly you. I've perfectly recreated what you look like. And they don't like it. They don't like it when you do it perfectly exact and add all the gory details of the skin into there. I could instantly see they didn't appreciate that. And that was a young age to learn that lesson as an artist. People don't necessarily want 100% realism. They really don't. Okay, they definitely don't want 100% realism. They want a little bit of magic airbrushing going on here and there. Keep all the good details, leave the bad. That's all I'll say. Maybe for anyone who's into portraiture artwork, maybe it's worth always remembering that. Unless you're a caricaturist, then do what you want. Arzel Gavinci says the deep end with Tyler Welch has some good content like yours. You should definitely reach out and get an interview with him about your Nephilim look like clowns theory. I am not in the game of reaching out to people to talk about my work. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I am not one to beg. If people want me to come onto their channel and talk about my work, they can message me and ask me nicely, and we'll see. Okay, that's kind of how I do it. But I'm not interested. I have a full enough calendar as it is. I don't need to go out looking for interviews with people. But if you want to message Tyler and tell him about my work and tell him to get in touch with me, you can always do that yourself. Why is this chat so slow? There's not actually that many people watching today. Not everyone's as interested in art and drawing as most people. This is a bit different from the usual stuff. Obviously, I'm going to talk about some conspiracy things now once this drawing's done. This is almost coming to an end. I just kind of wanted to mix it up a little bit. You know, not everyone appreciates this kind of stuff and wanted to stick around, and I can understand that. I can understand that. I'm with you, Paul. It seems logical. I feel it's really clear. I am now at peace, says N Marino. Well, that's good. I'm glad the truth has brought you peace. That's what it should do, right? It's a comforter, and the Holy Spirit is there to comfort you. And I do feel like the most comfort has come from this little seasoned understanding. And it's not like everything's sunshine and lollipops and that makes everything perfect, or we're not going to suffer some kind of tribulation or issues. It's not like, oh, well, I don't have to worry about anything anymore. It's not like that, you know. I definitely do feel like it, gaining perspective of the truth of the reality of when we are helps us have some context and not feel so lost, which is nice, isn't it? And that's for sure. I got heavy chronic pain issues, says Sammy. I'm sorry to hear that. I have an appointment tomorrow. Please pray that I finally get a good medication. Thank you. I'll pray for you, Sammy. I understand what it's like to have chronic pain. I truly do. I really do legitimately. I empathize and understand deeply that feeling. I've got my own issues, which I'm currently in the process of dealing with. It turns out I have very low cortisol, guys. I'm having tests run right now to find out what's going on there. It's possible my hemochromatosis has damaged my pituitary gland, which deals with testosterone and cortisol. And my testosterone is fine, but my cortisol is low. So we're looking into seeing if what's going on there. But I suffer from extreme crippling fatigue every single morning, and a severe lack of oxygen going around my body every morning. So I feel like I'm dead. I also I'm just coming out of extreme anemia as well right now after having too much blood taken out of me to solve the hemochromatosis organ damage problem. It's been a nightmare, but I'm coming out of the end of it now, and we're trying to find out where the damage has been done. And yeah, chronic pain, I'm there with you. But I'll pray for you, Sammy, and I hope you and your doctors get to the bottom of it. Anyone else feel themselves pulling away from friends and family they no longer relate to? Says Pearl. I saw a tweet about conspiracy Christians becoming more solitary, but far from depressed, just seeking peace. Well, yes and no. Myself personally, I'm a social guy, you know, and I don't have an issue with people not believing what I believe or not knowing what I know. That's fine, and you know they know what I know, but I'm never going to abandon them for not agreeing with me necessarily, you know. And I'm okay with that. That's their choice, and I can't take that away from them. But I understand the desire to want a recluse, and I suppose nowadays I'm a bit more of a recluse than I used to be. I don't hang around with my old friends really anymore as much as I used to, but it's kind of like, in a way, I've kind of got busy. Life got in the way, you know, family, children, other things as well. You know, interests change, and we can forgive ourselves for that, you know. But it's also a case of if I did go back to some of my old friends and say, do you want to hang out? I'm sure they'd be fine with it and say, yeah, let's do it. But they also have the same thing going on, life and everything else. So it might not necessarily be a conspiracy Christian thing alone, but I do think, I feel like conspiracy Christians do feel it a lot because we're in a weird realm, aren't we? We are in a weird realm. But I wouldn't recommend purposefully cutting off your friends and family over this stuff. We're all just people trying to figure it out. You know, let's not put each other down for being on different levels, should we say. I appreciate your time, says Wendy Platts. Oh, thank you. I can't even do simple stick figures, says T-Prod. Well, you know, it would be quicker to do a stick figure, wouldn't it? This has taken me, like, again, this is almost finished now. There's 2 minutes left, and I'm about to end this. And it's not actually finished. I noticed after this, there's so much more to do. Like, here I am adjusting where the line is for the background. I got it in the wrong place. Minor adjustments at the end, just to get it to look right. As you notice at the bottom half of the body there, I didn't shade in the rest, and it should be a lot darker underneath that kind of like bearded mane they have underneath the chin there. It should be much darker under the chin altogether. It shouldn't be white like it is. So I need to add a lot of dark shading just underneath the cheeks and the chin there, and make that defining white on black more obvious. And I also noticed, very last minute, quite foolishly, I didn't put the whiskers in. the eyebrow hairs. And they are basically just straight wispy white lines that need to flick out from the just under the nostrils and over the eyebrows. And I have the perfect tool next to me, that white pen can do it, and I just forgot to do it before I finished. So this is a cat without whiskers, guys, and that's something I will have to add before I send it to Wendy, just to purely finish the image. But here it is, guys. This is it coming to a final thing now. Just getting some minor background details in there, but the background's not important. You just want to make sure the background doesn't detract away from the main thing, but complements it. That's basically how I try and do it. And you know, it's filler more than anything. And as you can see in this bottom corner, I'm kind of just setting it up as a place to put my signature, just to finalize it. You don't need detail in the background, but there we go, that's done now. So I give it a quick sign and date it. It's the British dating system. It's the 11th of November 24. So there you go. There's the drawing for Wendy. Wendy, I hope you like it. I'll get it sent to you. Thanks for sending that to me. I really appreciate it. And just a quick message to Pearl. I think it was you who sent me pictures of your dogs. I'm sorry I didn't get round to doing them this time. Okay, maybe next time, we'll see. You know, you can only choose one, and I wanted to give Wendy this first. So there we go. Thanks, guys. And no, T-Prod, that's not my cat. It's Wendy's cat, and it's drawn from a picture. So now that's done, let me just quickly get this up and back to the webcam. Here I am. Hairs all over the place. That'll do. And yeah, there's the original image. And as you can see, big white whiskers sticking out the side here. And mine drawing is severely lacking those whiskers, unfortunately. But I think I did a good enough job. I think I pretty much captured it there. Close enough. But I do need to add the whiskers in and make it darker at the bottom still. So there's some final touches that need kind of doing. But there is the side-by-side drawing. And that's it. So I think I pretty much got there, didn't I? I'm okay with that. I'm happy with that. And it was good to get back into it. But yeah, Wendy, I will get this out to you as soon as I get those whiskers in. I'll just send me your address again. I'll make sure to get it out as soon as I can. It shouldn't cost too much because it's very light and thin, so don't worry about costs or anything. I'll just get that out to you. So yeah, let me try and get the chat back up on this because it's annoying me that I can't see it. That never finished rendering, by the way. I said I was waiting for it to render. Never ended up rendering, which is kind of annoying, unfortunately. Let's close that, and I'm going to use this as my chat instead, so I can see what you guys are saying. Perfect. But yeah, so any questions, guys? Let's have a bit of a talk for a little bit. How long have I got left? How long have I been going for? I've been going for an hour and a half. Another half an hour. Let's have a bit of a truth at therapy session, old school style. But yeah, just some thoughts throughout the process about sculptures and things built during the millennial kingdom. I don't think God made us in his image not to be creative, to shun creativity and making things of beauty, and to document history and to express our innermost thoughts and ideas and processes to understand how we feel and make sense of the world around us. I think he wants us to do that and allows us to do that. And I haven't found anything yet in my life as an artist that's made me think that it's wrong to make a sculpture of something or to draw something, whatever that subject matter may be. You can't remove the artist from the artwork, I guess is what I'm trying to say there, really, as much as we like to think we can, which is pretty much what people do with Revelations in the Bible, right? They remove the author and the people it was written to away from the words and apply it to themselves and think that's the only interpretation, which is just silly. You might see a statue of Athena on a beautiful Tartarian or Millennial Kingdom building and think the person who made this worships Athena. This is blasphemous and evil. Or the person who sculpted that is trying to remember a time in history where mankind was lost and he doesn't want people to forget, and he's ruminating on that time and what it meant to follow false idols, and he's ruminating on the beauty of these idols and how people fell for it. And throughout the creation of that piece of artwork, he's made it to say to people, look at what was around at some point. Look what people venerated. Look at the stories that these things were involved with, which often paintings show and reliefs show, It doesn't mean the person who created it supports it wholeheartedly and is doing it for veneration solely from a blasphemous godlike perspective of worshipping false idols. It means they were thinking about something, a topic, a subject matter, and expressed themselves about it. We can't forget that. Now, some things are made purely just for blasphemous idolatry reasons, don't get me wrong, but not everything. Art itself is not inherently evil, I guess is what I'm trying to say. That's just my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, guys. What do I know, eh? Who am I? Just some guy, Maybe I just need to shut up. Right. I'll get the chat up. And yeah, any questions, guys? Anything you want to say? Let me know. Not a cat without whiskers. I know, right? Sorry, wait. I will add the whiskers, and I'll take a photo of it and send it to you before I send in the post. I'll update the Telegram group with the whiskered cat, shall we say? But I'm not going to do it right now while I'm tired. I'll do it with fresh eyes in the morning and a steady hand. I'm going to get a quick drink of peppermint tea. That's what I've gone for. A caffeine-free, watery beverage, which has probably gone cold. It's lukewarm. Whatever. It'll do. Let's see. Looks like you captured it, says Wendy. Yeah, good. I think I did it. I think I did it, yeah. Your drawing of her kitty is beautiful. Thanks for considering my puppers. Would love to see them in a future video, says Pearl. I'll see what I can do, Pearl. Yeah, they were very cute dogs. They reminded my of my Jack Russell. Yeah, that they had the Jack Russell face, but obviously, yeah, I'll save that for another time. I'll give it a go. I'll give it a quick sketch. That was a highly detailed drawing there. It took a long time, but there's many levels to drawing you can do. You can give yourself time limits, you know, and say, I'm going to draw it in this amount of time, and you cut corners, and you end up creating quite interesting things in that process. If I could just, I mean, like I said, I've been going through the office, and I found a whole wad of old books here. And I had this old sketchbook here, and I did find some fun drawings in there from a bygone times, shall we say, which I might share with you guys. That is a tree. What have we got? That is also a tree. And so is this. I don't know what I was doing there. I was playing with ink and straws, and I had a bit of fun. What else have we got here? Something more interesting than trees. I don't know what. For some reason, I sketched out a quick classic flat Earth map. I must have been going through some stuff at that time years ago, trying to figure some stuff out. Nonsense. I attempted to draw the Nephilim in the early days, something like this, as you can see. Got people here bowing down to them, you know. But this is maybe before I'd mastered the whole Nephilim clown concept. I don't know what that was. It's hard to draw things from imagination when you haven't got reference points. I'm not that great at that. But, you know, you can definitely see my style coming through. You kind of weave it all together. So this is fun. So everyone knows about the Nephilim skulls, don't they? The elongated skulls. Let me just quickly wipe this webcam. I think it's causing a bit of a glare. There you go. It's a bit better. So everyone remembers the Nephilim skulls, don't they? These things. Found all over the place. The Paracas skulls, the Incan skulls. These elongated skulls of the Nephilim. And I was trying to play around with, well, what would they have looked like? What would it look like if you put skin on this thing? And I kind of came up with this as a result. Yeah, I drew this a while ago, so there we go. Let's put some skin on it. And it's very reptilian in nature, and I did the whole clown type hair thing, you know. And the side profile, you can see it's my style. You can see how I've done the hair there. That's very much how I do hair. I like to remove a lot with a rubber and create that effect. But there we go. There's a sketch of the Nephilim from back in the day, years ago. 2018, that's probably dated, maybe 2017. One of the skulls as well. What else have we got? Let's try and do it again there. Put skin on one of those weird looking skulls. The front view wasn't as good. Equally as terrifying though, but not as great as the side profile. Not everything's a masterpiece, is all I can say. What else have I got in this old sketchbook of mine? Even this one that I drew the cat in has some old scribbles in it. Look, there's me when I was going through my Stalin phase. Bit of a self-portrait. A bit wonky there. Not great, not highly detailed, but something. Eyes. I used to like drawing eyes, not because I'm into anything weird, but they're interesting. Eyes are the window to the soul, as they say. There's the cat on a nice fresh page. Do I have anything else in this one? I don't think I do, but I'll keep that to one side and keep it safe. What else have I got? It's a trip down memory lane for me. What else have I got in here? That's not my sketchbook. That's the wife's. I'm sure I've got more. I'm off on one now. I'm gonna see what's in the cupboard of mystery over here. Got more old sketchbooks down here. This was an old research journal, kind of never really finished or did much else in, but here's a dark, early precursor idea of what the Nephilim may have looked like when I was playing with the idea. Absolutely terrifying, I know. I'm sorry it's so gory and horrible, but there's the Basler Fastnatch Festival next to it as like a mood board concept or idea. And I really got into charcoal at one point and playing with the masks. Never finished that though. Another quick self-portrait. Back in the day, that's more scribbly, as you can see, less detail. Then I went hyper detailed on myself. But I've noticed the eyes are a bit too big. So I'm not really too happy with that. But yeah, I think these are the most recent drawings prior to that. Then I kind of just stopped. Kind of lost it after that. I wasn't interested. Like I said, I drew my wife, and that was it. And most of the older artworks throughout the years are gone. Again, I'm not possessive about it. I don't really care. It's fine. That's absolutely fine. Let's talk anything conspiracy, guys. What have we got? Definitely a bit shady. You got the picture. I'm losing it, guys. I'm losing the chat. It's disappearing on me. Artwork can be a universal language, says Freya, although academia has us dumbed down with artwork like everything else. Yeah. The industry is an absolute shambles. It's a money laundering scheme these days, more than anything. And everything is done to kind of destroy standards of beauty. It's a shame. It's a real shame, because everyone thinks it's now subjective about what is and isn't beautiful, and it's really not. Individuals can have tastes, yes, but there is an objective standard outside of the individual, which we can all know when we see it. And I suppose it's closer to God, in a sense, and the inspiration it gives you when you see it, that feeling, that knowing that this is a piece of beauty captured and there to behold and to inspire, you know. And it's not subjective, it's objective. Everybody knows it. Like when you look at a cathedral, for example. There may be some people here who haven't actually seen a Gothic cathedral. That's understandable, because you've got to go to certain places and travel to really get to them. Very popular touristy areas, but I've been blessed to see a few in my time, and when you see a cathedral, it's breathtaking. Like, you go to the city, and you get to your hotel and you're stressed from the journey and everything. You go out walking down the high street, you see all the brutalist architecture from the 60s and 70s laying around this city centre. You see like decaying old architecture that's kind of mixed in with new. And you start walking through, and you start going through the more classic district, and the stones get a bit more cobbled and kind of untouched, and you still feel like you're going into a bit of a back in time. And you see these old buildings that have been preserved and turned into cute little bookshops and quaint cafes and stuff. And then you turn the corner, and suddenly you see this enormous thing in front of you, and it hits you. You look at it and you stop. And you see so many bricks, so much intricacy, sandstone brickwork and detail in every single inch of the damn thing that your brain cannot comprehend it all at once. It's too much information for you to process, so you stood there in awe, staring at this complex, mammoth behemoth of a building in front of you. And it stops you. You stop. And it's scary. It instills awe-inspiring fear at what you're witnessing, in a sense. And it's not like a bad fear. It's more like you're standing in front of the grace of God type of feeling. You're like, you are not worthy type of feeling. And yes, it probably is built by the hands of men. But these men were so inspired by an objective standard of beauty, it's undeniable. And they were striving to reach and to impress God himself, it feels, with what they created. And that's just the outside, which is weathered and decaying in some way, yet still perfect, even though it has these imperfections in its form. And then you go inside, and it gets even more amazing. It lights up, and it's the organ, everything else, the intricate architecture, pillars and columns throughout, the form and the heavy stone marble that's imweaved within it, the ornate pattern. It gets even more intense because it's no longer just sandstone. It's all forms of precious stones just laid and inlaid into everything and everything around you. And it's kind of, who built this? Like, peasants with horse and buggy over hundreds of years? No. No. No way. Feudal, barren kings all trying to kill each other constantly had the time to fund and focus on this kind of stuff because they just really, really, I don't know, loved church and God, supposedly, like during a time where it was supposedly the worst time in human history to be alive, where people didn't live any longer than 30 years old. Like, rarely. Like, I don't think so. People with knowledge and skill and time on their hands and no monetary limitations built that. And you don't know it until you see it. And the thing is about the cathedral, it's similar to a lot of the surrounding buildings, but when you get away from it, it's unlike anything else in the area. It's like, it's not the same. It's alien to the rest of the place. It's like it didn't belong. in its scale, its size, it's mind-bogglingly large. It's like, this shouldn't be here. It's how it feels. It feels like an alien spaceship has landed in the middle of a city, and you don't feel it until you see it, until you're next to it. And I think people who have been to cathedrals know exactly what I'm talking about here. Like, they know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's undeniable. And I would recommend anybody come to England and just go and see York Minster or Lincoln Cathedral. Just go and see them. Or just go to Paris and walk around every corner. Like, honestly, Paris is full of it. Go to Edinburgh. Just go to Edinburgh and look at what's been built there. Even Amsterdam. Go to Amsterdam and see what's been built there as well. Go Copenhagen, these places. This, Germany is full of it. Like, these things are incredible. Truly a testament to a time and a people who are artistically inspired. Like, they weren't built by the Nephilim, like people say, or before the flood, which is a ridiculous time scale to place them in, because they can see the weathering on them. Like, they're old, but they're not that old. They were probably built maybe around 1,000 years ago, give or take. It's about right. You can see the weathering for that, It's not like an ancient time or something, like the Millennial Kingdom was that long ago. They weren't built that long ago for people not that long ago. And the weathering matches up with the timing just right. But they still stand. Still there. Some of them are being burnt down even. I wonder why. Paul saving the nudes for the members chat. It's going to all agree. I don't have any nude drawings, actually. No, it's funny because when I was at college, they would bring in a model for us to draw nude portraiture with, and they literally brought in, no word of a lie, it's like she's like a 70-year-old morbidly obese woman, and you can imagine, you can just use your imagination with that. But they're the nudist models I got to draw. And I don't know. Odd. What do you think of the Mandela effect being one of the many signs and wonders, says Peter Fogel? I'm skeptical in many ways. I'm about 80% sold on the idea that it's even happening at all. But I do always have that 20% in the back of my head that it's not really happening like people think it is. On the assumption that it is happening and things are changing in every aspect through some kind of quantum manipulation or something like that, I don't know whether to frame that within the framework of the devil supernaturally doing this or man is doing this through science. And I think we can get lost in the weeds of the Mandela effect as a distraction away from the key point that matters, is that we are in the little season of Satan. And it comes part and parcel with that for some kind of memory deception to be taking place, including what we think and isn't real in our immediate moments. And the only fruit I have really found from the Mandela effect is It's not good fruit, predominantly. Some good things come from it. It can lead to better things and inspire people to go and look at other things. Don't get me wrong, it has its place, I suppose. But it basically causes people to lose faith in the very foundations of their own memories and thoughts, to the point where they don't feel like they can believe or stand on anything anymore. And I think it makes people lose their sense of stability when they start going down the Mandela effect route. And that worries me. I don't see that as fruitful, necessarily. But there's definitely something dodgy going on with people's memories and perceptions. And with AI being what it is, who knows how long they've had this technology for? It could be this is a long con and they've been playing us for a long time and purposefully editing everything and anything online, an image of the past, to mess with us, to gaslight us. Again, making us think these things have changed. But because, obviously, in a supernatural sense, physical hard books and things are changing that people have had in their attic for years, and it's kind of... I've talked to John Kerwin. He gave some great insight on the Mandela effect in his own theory. So I'm not like alien to the idea. I've been there when it first arrived. I was there talking about it originally when it was first a concept as well, and I've had years within the idea and concept, and I've talked to experts and so forth, and I don't think it's where I want to maintain my focus, personally. But it's still interesting. What have we got here? I got a question. Do you think the powers that be actually have Project Bluebeam capabilities, or do they just fronting like they do? Projects in the sky and or hidden government-made UFO tech, says Pearl. That's interesting. I theorize that the reason why there are lines in the sky that disperse, shall we say, is that they're trying to create some kind of giant reflective LCD screen of some kind, so the projection technology will work more efficiently, and look realistic. But at the same time, they're only as good as the programmers and the designers and artists who can create the projections that we're going to see. So and you see what they can do with special effects in Hollywood, so I wouldn't put it beyond their capabilities of being able to do these type of things necessarily. I've even heard people say the Elon rocket landing was all holographic projection, and all this type of stuff. And who knows what they're capable of? Again, way beyond our own public version of that technology. There's a jet flying past. That was funny timing. At this time as well, at midnight. That sounds so loud. Anyway, that's what happens when you live near a military weapons base, I suppose. Well, I say weapons. I think they make aircraft for the RAF or something like that. But it's off topic. Bluebeam. Maybe. I think Bluebeam can serve as a great way of covering up spiritual events. Oh yeah, we're doing this with our holographic technology. I agree. It's a handy get out, isn't it? When it could just be fallen angels and demons manifesting, and we're just programmed to think the government's got secret technology and they're projecting fake aliens. When it could be real, it could just be real spiritual phenomena they have no control over at all. Like, that's going to happen when it happens, and they have nothing to do with it. They want to give the illusion of control, maybe that's, I've heard that kind of angle, and that's possible. It could be that they're trying to fake an alien invasion in the future to mask and cover up when New Jerusalem appears. Because if New Jerusalem, a giant floating city, suddenly appears in the sky, that could be when they begin to project loads of smaller UFOs around it and all over the earth. And the only thing that's real was New Jerusalem, but it's surrounded by all these fake holograms now. So they've made it look like a mass alien invasion led by a mothership, when all Jesus did was just lift the veil on Mount Zion. It could maybe that. Who knows? Truly, what the end goal is. Wernher von Braun made it clear is the final end goal is a fake alien invasion. So make of that what you will. But can you trust the dying words of an ex-Nazi rocket scientist? I don't think so. Probably some level of deceit going on, isn't there? But I think as long as throughout the fake alien invasion, there's no mention of Jesus, then we need to look for Jesus during that time. What are they hiding, I think? And we got an extra quiver in our bow, in our set now, haven't we, for our bow? The Millennial Kingdom angle contextualizes a lot of future events for us quickly. I think we can very quickly figure out where the deception is now we understand this angle. So it's interesting. I've been in cathedrals before I was awake. Very awe-inspiring, says Marlowe. Yeah, go now, knowing what you know. Honestly, it melds your mind, man. It's crazy. I saw the video you were talking about with Leaving Babylon. Very good stuff, and the architecture is absolutely stunning during the reign of Christ. I don't have much near me in Delaware, small state. Yeah, get out, guys, get to Europe. And Europe's a big place with many other countries. But go and check out any of the places I said. Amsterdam, Belgium, France, Germany, Switzerland, all that middle European region. And you can even go up north to England. Check out all the cathedrals, any cathedral in England, or the way to Edinburgh as well. And it's a world. It's worlds apart, especially from what you've got there in America. It's something else. It's old. It feels older. See, it feels like America's like a newer attempt. Maybe America was like late stage Millennial Kingdom stuff. Like, and the original Millennial Kingdom was first established somewhere in Europe, maybe, and then it spread out. But this architecture is everywhere. So I imagine pockets of revivals and this Millennial Kingdom was being established all over the earth. It seems like there's a highly concentrated section in the middle of Europe, and it's odd. It's alien stuff compared to everywhere else. But I think it's interesting. I was listening to theories and ideas, about like ancient Hindu temples and the temples in like Myanmar or something like that, and all over the eastern regions, and they have some pretty impressive, incredible looking architecture there. Like that's also alien compared to the European flavor, which is equally as impressive, And people were saying, well, it's likely theorizing. I heard people theorizing in the Millennial Kingdom sphere that they were probably also built during the reign of Christ, but by Christ's enemies, who were taking full advantage of the knowledge and the technology available during his reign, but were using it for their own purposes and for their own temples and their own false gods. And I'm sure they suffered their own consequences for doing that during the reign. Maybe not. I heard one interesting theory that Satan was bound up in Tartarus, which may have been the East. It was still on Earth, but just in the East, the land of dragons, right? And it may have been during the millennial reign, he was cornered off from the rest of the world somewhere in eastern lands while they were doing their own thing outside of the borders of, New Jerusalem. And they were left to their own devices. And now we live in a world where those borders are dropped, and they've been mingling with all sides, and who knows? But at the same time, I'm sure there were people who were on Christ's kingdom and on his side in these places too. And it maybe more, I think the Millennial Kingdom was a lot more complicated than we'd like to think it was. It's not the new heaven and earth where everything's sussed out and perfect. It was a messy time where Christ ruled with an iron rod, and there probably were still wars and fights and factions and droughts and punishments from the king and all these type of things. It probably wasn't all sunshine and rainbows all the time. I think it was complicated, geopolitically complicated. Like, it was a complicated political environment to be in. I think a lot of kings and kingdoms were around, and populations of these kingdoms who didn't know what to make of Christ when he first turned up. Many would not have liked bowing down to a foreign god who they've never really known or heard of properly, other than when these odd men came over on their boats preaching this strange message, like a few years ago. Like, it would have been strange. It would have taken time for people to acclimatize to the new norm, which is Christ ruling on earth, or from heaven with his saints on earth. It would have been odd. It would have been like aliens have invaded and have taken over from their perspective, right? Like, it's strange when you try and empathize with their point of view. So there would have been rebellions. There would have been pushback. There would have been fights. There would have been all sorts of things going on. There would have been back engineering of technology and knowledge taught to them. And yeah, many temples to many ideas and ideologies and religions could have been built during the millennial reign, not just the stuff that glorifies God and Jesus specifically. So who knows? You know, just some speculation there again, guys, but it's fun to think about. A real object will be in the sky, but people will say it's blue beam, thinks Wendy. Yeah, exactly. It's convenient for them to have the blue beam card to play when New Jerusalem rocks up. It's like, oh, no, guys. Well, it's kind of like, you're not supposed to know this, but we're the ones projecting that. And they'll kind of like leak it to all the conspiracy theorists through like some like false documents. Like, whoops, our top secret file got leaked to YouTube. And everyone's like, the government's projecting the UFO in the sky right now. It's all a big secret plan by them, you know. But when really, they have no control over that. Christ is just here to, you know, to collect, basically. It's kind of just maintain as much distraction and confusion as possible, eh? Blue bean. It'll forever be known as Project Blue Bean now, absolutely. What time are we on, guys? Let me just check. Okay, so we've hit the 2-hour mark. I think probably not much more I can say right now without repeating myself and just going on and on and on. As you can see, my voice is going. It's quite late. I hope you guys enjoyed the drawing I did for Wendy there. Again, just an excuse for me to get back into it. Just a bit of way of proving to you all, when I say I'm an artist, I'm not just making stuff up. I hope I didn't sound too pretentious out there. I'm not that type, you know. I used to be the type who could draw a line and explain to you why it's the most intense and deep concept you've ever understood in your entire life. That's the game of modern art. I don't like playing that game. I hope you learned a bit more about technique and what it means to draw and what the thought processes of somebody who draws is, I suppose. And I hope you can relay the artistic mind going through the Millennial Kingdom and what perhaps people were thinking when creating the beautiful things we see as remnants from that kingdom. And just imagine what we don't see, what was destroyed in those great fires. Imagine what we have in comparison to what was. You know, we are breadcrumbs from the loaves that were laying all over the land. What an odd metaphor. I like that one. I'm going to use that one again. Yeah, who knows, guys? Who knows? But I hope you enjoyed this different Truth or Therapy session than usual. Again, to my audio-only people out there, this is definitely a visual video. You are going to have to go and watch it on YouTube to understand what I'm talking about. You know, that's just the way it is. But yeah, thanks for listening, guys. I appreciate it. Wendy, send me your address again. Just remind me, and I'll get that out into the mail to you as soon as I can. Like I said, I just need to add the whiskers, and this will be done for you, and it's yours. As a thank you from me for all the hard work you do for me on this channel and all the support you give me and Keely, it's incredible. To everybody else out there, if you want maybe to have something drawn of yourself, or you have any ideas of something you want me to draw, let me know. Send me a message. Maybe I can hook up with the cam and we can do a live drawing session. I'll be drawing and talking at the same time. You know, I can multitask. I can do that. And maybe we can get some fun things going, but I can't promise I'll draw everything everybody sends me. It takes time, okay? Let's just remember that. But yeah, thanks for listening, everyone. I appreciate it. Get yourself a copy of The Nephilim Look Like Clowns. The book's available on Amazon. Make sure to go and get yourself a copy if you haven't already. The perfect present for Christmas, no doubt. Maybe Thanksgiving as well. I know you guys in America are really into that kind of stuff, so maybe give that a go. But yeah, guys, I'll be back soon with another video. Thanks for listening, and as always, God bless. Are you? At first, I just thought people couldn't financially justify hiring a clown anymore, you know? Then I started blaming the media for portraying my people as bloodthirsty murderers, cult members, or man-eating space aliens. Of course, the 2016 clown sightings didn't help. Ronald was the first to go. They just took him away. And we stayed silent. Because that's when the book appeared. What new form of clown bigotry was this, I thought? Hadn't my people suffered enough? My clown act was failing because people just weren't taking it seriously. And once they fired me from the circus, I tried suing them for funfair dismissal. My unicycle rusted, and my balls gathered dust. I used to make kids scream with laughter, you know. So much that I could see the tears of joy running down their faces. And then it just stopped. I was so upset that I started eating the banana cream pies instead of throwing them in people's faces. I gained so much weight that summer. I avoided it for a while, but the book's front cover was just so eye-catching, and it was so readily available on Amazon, that I gave in and finally read the thing. I didn't even know what the Nephilim were. Luckily, the author spent the first half of the book concisely explaining the biblical history to me in an easy-to-understand manner, so that wasn't really a problem for long. That's when I read the rest of the book and realized that being a clown is no joke.